I cheated, got my affair partner pregnant, she became homeless after her family found out, and I nearly lost everything. OMG. Prepare yourselves. This will be a lengthy narrative. The story I am about to share spans more than 5 years. I feel compelled to recount it here because I have recently experienced overwhelming stress and trauma, and sharing my experiences is the only way I can manage it since I lack anyone to confide in. Before proceeding, I must clarify one point in this tale: everyone acted poorly. However, my affair partner is the one who truly lacked judgment. Here we go. Several years ago, during my carefree bachelor phase, I encountered a woman named Rose. I was out for a stroll when I spotted her by her gate. I approached her and expressed my interest in a casual relationship, without any commitments. I understand that was rather bold, but it turned out to be effective. She agreed, and we ended up being intimate that weekend. From then on, we would meet regularly at my place. However, there was a catch: Rose did not meet society's standards of beauty. In fact, most would describe her as somewhat unattractive, but I never perceived her that way. She possessed an extraordinary personality, was incredible in bed, and was enjoyable company. Nevertheless, she was not someone I could envision marrying. A couple of years and additional brief encounters later, I met Lisa while grocery shopping. I asked her if she would be interested in a casual relationship, and although she initially hesitated, her curiosity eventually won her over, and our relationship blossomed from there. Lisa was undeniably attractive and 9 years younger than me. In my community, such age differences are quite common. After Lisa and I became intimate, I realized she was a virgin and I was her first. Following that, we were nearly inseparable. Consequently, I decided to end my other relationships, including the one with Rose. Lisa and I became exclusive. Eventually, we began living together, and before long, we tied the knot. During our time together, we would sometimes run into Rose while out walking, and Lisa absolutely detested her. In fact, she loathed her. It only added fuel to the fire when Lisa caught wind of Rose inquiring whether I was married. Eventually, Rose left town to stay with a relative. This left Lisa and me on our own. After a few years, we wed. However, I started hearing rumors that Rose was back in town. Although my physical relationship with Lisa was enjoyable, I found my encounters with Rose to be even more satisfying, so much so that I began to miss our time together. Once I learned of her return, I sent Rose a message while Lisa was visiting her parents. I then made my way to Rose's place, marking the beginning of our affair. We would meet secretly, having intimate encounters in my vehicle. We never used protection, confident in my control and our clean health statuses. Then, calamity struck. Rose's sister passed away, forcing her to relocate and stay with a relative, essentially severing our communication. Yet this did not entirely deter us. Around this same time, Lisa started her internship. Rose and I took advantage of this time, meeting at my home before Lisa returned. Each time, I would ensure to pull out. However, Rose began expressing curiosity about what it felt like to have a man climax inside her. To be honest, I was eager for that experience as well. One day, right after her period had finished, a safe day, we devised a plan for another rendezvous at my place. I purchased a morning after pill and we proceeded with our plan. This time, however, I did not pull out. I climaxed inside her and she enjoyed every moment. She took the pill and returned home. I thought everything was fine. Then, during our conversations, she began mentioning feelings of nausea and illness. I suggested she might be pregnant, but she rejected the idea. She refused to acknowledge the possibility. Worried, I urged her to take a pregnancy test. Reluctantly, she purchased one, and it returned positive. Moreover, Rose was somewhat larger, not overweight but not slender either. This initiated one of the most stressful periods of my life. If her family discovered the truth, they would bring her to my home, demanding reparations or forcing a marriage. I had to ensure Lisa remained unaware. I insisted that we needed to terminate the pregnancy, but she continually resisted, claiming that she would prefer to keep it, asserting that her family would never disown her if they found out. Day after day, I would go on walks to call her and plead for her to consider an abortion, but she consistently rejected the idea. Then, fortune smiled upon us. One day, Rose unexpectedly began to bleed. As it turned out, she had a miscarriage and a friend rushed her to the hospital. I feigned concern and gave her some money to cover her medical expenses, believing everything was resolved. I thought I was in the clear. No pregnancy, no baby. But Rose was heartbroken. To be honest, Rose had always been infatuated with me. She had longed to be my partner and felt upset that I had chosen to marry Lisa instead. She desperately wanted to bear my child, or at least have something to remind her of me as a consolation, but that was now impossible. She blamed herself for the loss and I went along with it. Now, this is where things took a turn for the worse. After all that transpired, Rose and I ceased our interactions. Her new residence created such logistical challenges that avoiding her was the easiest solution. Additionally, Lisa had terminated her internship, leaving me with no way to see Rose. However, one day, circumstances changed. Lisa was scheduled to take her final exam in college, granting me approximately 4 hours of solitude. I seized this opportunity to contact Rose, discover her whereabouts, and drive to her home. Clearly, Rose and I had not learned our lesson, for I purchased another morning after pill en route, and once again, after hearing her plead, I did not pull out. And just as before, the pill failed to work. She called me days later, complaining of severe nausea. The issue? She was staying with a relative who would not accept a pregnancy. She continued to deceive her caregiver, claiming she was merely suffering from a cold. However, this relative was an older woman and could easily recognize the signs of pregnancy. I told Rose to obtain a pregnancy test, and once again, it indicated positive. Once more, I resorted to taking long walks to talk to Rose out of Lisa's earshot, desperate to persuade her to get an abortion. I felt immense stress during this time. All I could think about was my marriage collapsing if Rose were discovered, as her family would either bring her to me or to my family elders. Initially, she refused to consider an abortion, believing she could manage the situation with her family if they caught on. However, I continued to apply pressure until she finally agreed. Yet there was a catch. Abortion is illegal in our area. We had to proceed with caution. I encountered some advertisements for abortion pills on the dark web and informed Rose about them, but she refused the option of pills. Given that previous pills had failed, the morning after options, she opted to visit a local abortion expert who utilized herbal remedies. The cost remained the same regardless. The challenge was transferring the funds without Lisa noticing. Rose's caregiver had become suspicious and insisted that she take a pregnancy test since her nausea was becoming overwhelming. I had less than 24 hours to get the money to her before we would be exposed. Fortunately, I managed to borrow a third of the needed funds and sent it to Rose. She then coordinated with her cousin, who would provide her with an alibi. This cousin will be significant later in the tale. Rose visited the abortion expert, consumed the herbal remedy, and spent the night at the expert's residence until everything transpired. Just like that, we were spared. No more pregnancy. Thanks to the bleeding, Rose was able to convince her caregiver that she was merely on her period, resulting in all suspicions dissipating. However, Rose began feeling unwell, and I worried her womb needed medical cleaning, so she went to a clinic to have it addressed. But here is where matters became truly dire. She took the doctor's notes and report from the procedure, placing them in an envelope that she brought back home because she wanted to share the details with me. This was an incredibly foolish move on her part, and to this day, I struggle to comprehend it. You see, Rose concealed this envelope in her closet and went to work. Upon her return, her caregiver was looking through the paperwork, which confirmed she was indeed pregnant and had sought a womb cleansing. The issue arose from the ambiguous wording, which left it unclear whether she had experienced a miscarriage or an abortion. The caregiver interpreted it as an abortion and summoned her family members, along with a police officer, to arrest her. During this turmoil, I advised Rose to deny any association with me. They couldn't bring her to my family or my home if they were unaware of my whereabouts. I instructed her to claim it was a one-night stand and that she had no idea who the father was. I emphasized the importance of adhering to the story. Otherwise, we would both face dire consequences. The positive news: she maintained the narrative. The troubling news: her family urged her to seek out the baby's father and ordered her to pack her belongings and leave. Consequently, she found herself homeless, with no place to go, and I lacked the funds to provide her with accommodation since I was financially constrained. Rose became utterly homeless, and I was overwhelmed with stress, aware that after spending enough time on the streets and facing hunger, she might reveal everything to Lisa. I scolded her for her extraordinary lack of judgment in even bringing those documents home. "I just wanted to show you," she replied. "Well, now you're homeless and nearly ruined us both," I remarked. How grave could the situation have been? Her family had a police officer prepared to apprehend us and potentially incarcerate us on suspicion of an abortion. Had she not convinced them it was merely a miscarriage, we would both be behind bars by now. Anyway, she had been kicked out, homeless and without options. Fortunately, she had an acquaintance who allowed her to stay temporarily while she worked to reset her life. And for 3 months, she resided there, not contributing in any way, not seeking employment. Meanwhile, her friend grew increasingly impatient with her. I was attempting to raise funds to help her establish a business and support herself, or at least do something valuable with her life. Regrettably, financial progress was slow, and I was struggling to meet my own bills. Fortunately, a friend of hers situated abroad offered her a job opportunity. All she needed to do was board a bus to get there. Recognizing this as my chance, I scraped together enough money to cover her bus fare and sent it to her. She boarded the bus and left the country. For a time, I believed I had escaped, but it turned out to be just a moment of calm before the impending storm. Things were about to spiral out of control. I will provide further details in an update, but first, I need to sit down and organize the sequence of events accurately. I am undertaking this task as I attempt to recollect 3 years' worth of incidents. And now, I am working to arrange the following events in chronological order from my memory. Story 2. I was the team's go-to engineer, then told to look elsewhere. Now they've lost talent and clients seriously. What a mess. Obligatory note: English is not my primary language, and I am writing on a mobile device. I am a civil engineer with a degree in engineering that focuses on structural engineering. Additionally, I completed a specialized year in complex studies and design at a prestigious institution in my country after obtaining my degree. I am not sure if this gives you insight into my skills, but I ranked second and third respectively in both programs out of a cohort of 120 students. Therefore, it is safe to say that I am highly specialized. To summarize, I began my career with a standard entry-level job and was advised that if I was unsatisfied, I should consider other positions, despite a significant disadvantage for the company. Upon completing my studies, I signed a contract for my preferred job before graduation. I was not in a rush. I interviewed for 5 positions, submitted 7 resumes, and received 4 offers. The team I joined consisted of 6 engineers, including myself, focusing on existing structures. For instance, when a bridge or a dam develops a crack, we are called to assess the situation on site and perform calculations to determine if everything is safe. Fast forward a year, I integrated well, increased my skills, and matured professionally. After my second year, I transitioned from the person asking questions to the expert consulted when others needed solutions. Everything was going smoothly. I received annual raises, bonuses, and praise, essentially all the positive feedback one could hope for. However, challenges arose during my third year. By then, I had become the main resource for complex projects and for those seeking answers. Consequently, I requested a transition from project manager to a more back-end role known as technical referent. Essentially, while maintaining my regular responsibilities, part of my time would be allocated to ensuring standard compliance for the team and addressing more intricate topics that came up during the year. Although this position did not previously exist at the firm, it is common in many organizations. I made this suggestion because the team had expanded to 12 members. Due to my involvement in more complex projects, our sales had increased by 30% over 3 years, and we had promoted more team members to project managers. As a result, with 2 colleagues absorbing tasks I could not perform in my new role, the idea became feasible. Even my supervisor and his manager acknowledged in my annual review that many of the projects we had at the time were attributable to my contributions. To assume the position of technical referent, I informed them that I would require some additional training to enhance my technical expertise. I proposed the topics myself and even gathered pricing and contacts for relevant institutions. They expressed agreement both verbally and in writing, stating that while it might take some time, they were interested in establishing this position within the company. You can probably guess how this situation unfolded. In my 4th year, as I became increasingly integral to the team, I took on the responsibility of training and evaluating newcomers. Everyone sought my assistance instead of consulting the supervisor, including the supervisor himself. He even admitted that he struggled to understand some of the technical reports and calculations I prepared. Essentially, I became the go-to person when others were stumped or felt lost. Observing that nothing was progressing regarding my requested training and the role, I requested a meeting with someone from Human Resources to discuss my career trajectory. Unfortunately, the HR consultation was a disorganized affair. They mispronounced my name, were unaware of my background, and lacked my file, rendering the conversation mostly unproductive and brief. To put things in perspective, the firm is quite large in our industry, employing around 500 people with only 6 HR personnel overseeing the entire organization. Curiously, the HR representative I met was the same individual who had recruited me. The annual review with my supervisor soon followed, during which I expressed my growing concerns about their commitment to facilitating my growth. They did grant me a raise and bonus, assuring me they would take any necessary actions to support my advancement as I had requested. Now, in my 5th year, 3 colleagues departed, 2 for geographical reasons to reunite with family, and 1 who realized he could not keep up with the team and our projects. Meanwhile, nothing changed for me. I continued to be one of the 2 mainstays of our team, yet I received no training or opportunities for advancement. I even had to advocate for a specialized computer to perform calculations. Imagine attempting to run a complex finite element method model on a 5-year-old Core i5 with 8 GB of RAM all day. You can imagine my frustration. At this point, I asked to meet with my supervisor, explaining that it had been 2 years with no progress and urging him to take action. Following this, they scheduled a meeting with my supervisor, his manager, and a leader from another division. The first remark from my supervisor's manager was, "I didn't review your file and am not familiar with your requests. Please explain again." This individual was responsible for managing 50 employees. I complied and explained my situation again. After doing so, I felt overwhelmed by 2 of them for an hour while my supervisor remained silent. The gist of their response was that I needed to exert more effort, suggesting that it was my responsibility to provide answers and that I was asking for too much. Truthfully, I became mentally disengaged after about 10 minutes. By the conclusion of the meeting, I warned them that if no action was taken, I would begin seeking opportunities elsewhere, which might prompt others who were observing this situation to follow suit. Their response indicated that I should pursue other options if I was dissatisfied, but they would endeavor to meet my requests, which seemed contradictory. Now, 4 months have passed, and I felt treated as if I carried a contagious illness that might affect the entire hierarchy. On numerous occasions, I was warned that the grass may not be greener elsewhere, suggesting that while I might want to explore other options, I might not find something better, and other similar remarks to dissuade me. I maintain a good rapport with my entire team, and all members, with the exception of my supervisor, who was apathetic, expressed frustration with the circumstances surrounding me. It is worth mentioning that most of them had been trained by me, and their skills had developed as a result of my instruction. Ultimately, feeling disillusioned with management, I began job hunting, anticipating that nothing would change. Indeed, no changes occurred. I submitted 5 resumes, interviewed for 3 positions, received 2 offers, and chose one. Before leaving, I informed them that although the grass is not always greener on the other side, threats do not retain employees, and many others might follow my lead if they fail to recognize talent. I have now secured a new position that is more relaxed, requires fewer hours, offers a 10% salary increase, includes additional benefits, such as a company-provided vehicle, and recognizes me as a national expert in my field. As a consequence, 2 colleagues resigned 3 and 6 months later due to their loss of trust in the firm following my experience. Of the 6 remaining employees, 3 have indicated plans to leave as well based on what transpired. According to their feedback, The work environment has deteriorated. They now lack anyone to consult for technical inquiries, and there are no enjoyable discussions or technical collaborations occurring at the office essentially. They have become a skeleton crew waiting for better opportunities. To illustrate, these individuals are skilled. I attempted to recruit 2 of them, but they declined due to family reasons, which is understandable. I continue to share job openings and recommend them whenever possible. Once they depart, the most experienced individual in the division, besides the supervisor, will have merely 10 months of experience, with the average experience duration being 5 months. The company has lost significant contracts that I managed. Some clients reached out to me personally to inquire about the situation and expressed willingness to give the company a chance, but they noted that they do not trust my former supervisor due to past experiences. When I returned to say hello some time ago, I learned that sales have decreased to levels not seen in 5 years, representing a 35% decline within just 9 months following 3 resignations. Even my former supervisor admitted that they no longer attempt to respond to projects involving calculations that seem challenging because they lack the expertise since my departure. The future for the division now appears uncertain, as they are unsure of their standing due to the loss of skilled personnel for complex projects and calculations. This situation transpired some time ago, but I am relieved to share it. For new hires and those in their first jobs, please recognize your value as early as possible. It will significantly aid your growth and help you determine when you are being taken advantage of. Thank you for reading. Story 3. 4 years after my abortion, my husband still grieves daily. I regret my choice and it feels like I've ruined our lives. Initially, I believe some context is necessary. My husband and I began our relationship on the dating app Bumble when I was 17 and he was 23. Exactly 1 year later, we became engaged. He was very clear about his desire to have children, particularly hoping for 2 daughters. In fact, he even encouraged me to think about having children with him before he proposed. I, on the other hand, had never desired to have kids, mainly due to a history of childhood abuse that left me uninterested in that lifestyle. I communicated this to him, and he reassured me that he loved me, understood my feelings, and was willing to forego parenthood to spend his life with me. Over time, I began to appreciate the kind and caring man he truly was. He showed me selflessness and patience, even when I didn't deserve it. After dating for about a month, he expressed his desire for sex, but I explained my past and my feelings. Without a single complaint, he patiently waited until I was ready to be intimate. Gradually, I became more receptive to the idea of having children with him. He made me feel safe and was eager to provide for both me and our potential child. I eventually told my husband that I was open to the possibility of having a child. He was enthusiastic and eager to move forward, but he suggested we sit down and thoroughly discuss it. At that time, I was on a scholarship in medical school, set to graduate from a 6-year program at the age of 22, which was a significant source of pride for me. Our conversation ultimately led to me putting parenthood on hold mainly due to my academic commitments. Although he was upset, he remained supportive and even made arrangements well in advance for my graduation. As time passed, I grew weary of school and felt the need for a break. My scholarship allowed for a pause, so when I turned 20, I shared with my husband that I wanted to take time off to focus on having a child. I became pregnant within 2 months. While I was away, I took a pregnancy test that yielded a positive result. I sent him a photo of the test, but he didn't respond immediately. However, 4 hours later, he surprised me at my sister's house with flowers and Skittles, my favorite candy. In the beginning, everything felt magical. I don't think we had ever loved each other more deeply. He catered to my every need, cooking, cleaning, and taking care of our pets, insisting that I did more than enough. He expressed admiration for the fact that I was already working on his birthday present. I was puzzled until he pointed out that my due date would fall around his birthday in 9 months. However, I soon became very ill from hyperemesis gravidarum, leading to severe dehydration and multiple Roman IV treatments. My husband took on even more responsibilities, handling the laundry and managing my vomit bucket without hesitation. He became increasingly vocal about how proud he was of me, trying to help lift my spirits. Though I appreciated his affection, I found it somewhat off-putting that he would kiss me during my bouts of vomiting. After about a month and a half of feeling sick, I started to worry that I wouldn't be a fit mother. I feared that I would not love the child as I should or, worse, that I might harm them. By around the 3-month mark, I couldn't cope any longer. The relentless vomiting and my developing feelings about motherhood led me to discuss the idea of an abortion with my husband. I had never seen him cry before, not even during the loss of our pets, and witnessing his anguish broke my heart. This led me to postpone the procedure and seek medical advice. After my ultrasound and tests, I received 2 pills to take, one then and another later. I delayed taking the pills, repeatedly contacting my nurse in hopes of extending the timeline while my husband pleaded with me not to abort. He expressed concerns that I would regret my decision, stating that this would be our only opportunity to become parents together. He assured me of his support no matter what, even suggesting arrangements to live separately as a solution. He promised that he would take care of the baby until I felt ready to be a parent, allowing me the freedom to return whenever I felt prepared. None of his propositions appealed to me, but he made me promise while kneeling, tears streaming as he held my waist and kissed my abdomen, that I would inform him when I went through with the abortion so he could say goodbye. In the end, I didn't tell him. I wanted to, but each time I tried, he would attempt to convince me to continue the pregnancy, creating stress and often causing me to cry. I needed clarity. On the day I was scheduled to take the 2nd pill, he inquired whether I had gone through with the abortion. When I replied that I had, he broke down, sobbing into his hands, appearing utterly immobilized. I apologized, but he insisted that it was not my fault and that my reasons for choosing the procedure were valid and understandable. He persuaded me not to take the 2nd pill, suggesting that I try supplements in hope of preserving the pregnancy. Perhaps out of pity for his broken spirit and need for optimism, I agreed. Unfortunately, I only delayed the inevitable for him, which ultimately led to even more devastation. After 2 weeks, blood tests confirmed that I was no longer pregnant. His first question was, "What gender do you think they would have been?" I told him I believed they would have been a girl. He then shared a list of girls' names he had been compiling since high school. We picked a name together, and he started talking excitedly about everything he looked forward to sharing with our daughter. He approached it all with a practicality that bordered on bragging, mentioning in a humorous way how he couldn't wait to leave work with baby vomit on his shoulder after a sleepless night. Years have gone by, but he has tried therapy and even attended church, neither of which has helped much. He continues to cry every day. He has planned a wedding for her, bought toys and clothing, and has even damaged work equipment from crying too hard to see. He mentions her daily and, when startled awake, often first asks about our daughter and whether she is okay before realizing the truth. To this day, he checks if the things I eat are safe for a baby. We purchased a house and renovated it, adding a nursery complete with a name plaque. He spends time in there, crying and speaking to the empty bassinet when he believes I'm asleep. His desire for a reborn doll is intense. He would even sleep on the floor beside it. At times, he refers to her as if she were still alive, and I have seen him with firearms in that room, making me worried about what might happen. I have suggested having another child, but he always rejects the idea, sometimes even shouting. He insists that our daughter owns all the memories of parenthood, from her first steps to her first words, and all the milestones belong solely to her. When he tells me he wouldn't want another child, I initially thought he was being overly dramatic and hurtful. However, his seriousness about never wanting to have more children feels deeply painful. I never disclosed this to him, but he was correct. I do regret my decision. We attempt to comfort each other, but I recognize that I am the one who caused him this pain. I was finally at peace after a history of abuse and trauma before meeting him, and he rescued me from a dreadful life. I feel like I threw it all away. I disrespected the one true kind person I have ever known. I mourn for the daughter I lost, and I regret my choice every single day. I miss the happiness that I had and the joy of seeing my husband smile. In one night, I caused irreparable harm to 3 lives. I simply do not know what to do. He seems irreparably broken. I genuinely want to see him find joy again, or at least not remain in sorrow. I wish to see him achieve the fatherhood he has longed for. Although 4 years have passed, he reacts as if the loss occurred yesterday. He is resolute that it is not my fault, Yet I wish he would just express anger toward me or something similar. How can I support my husband? Summary: I terminated a pregnancy 4 years ago against my husband's wishes, which has left him profoundly depressed for an extended period. I'm seeking guidance on how to assist him.